The champagne cork hit me square in the forehead. "Oops," Lila said, not sounding sorry at all. She was wearing that red dress, the one I'd bought her for our anniversary last year, the one that cost more than my monthly car payment. Happy birthday, Gavin. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I rubbed the spot where the cork had struck, watching my wife of 8 years pour 2 glasses of Dom Perignon. The good stuff, the kind she usually saved for her office parties or when her mother visited. My stomach twisted into a familiar knot. "Thanks, honey," I said, accepting the glass. "This is unexpected." "Oh, you have no idea." Her smile was sharp enough to cut glass. "Sit down. We need to talk." I'd been a civil engineer for 15 years. I knew when a foundation was about to crack. The signs were always there, subtle shifts, hairline fractures, small movements that meant big trouble ahead. Looking at Lila now, champagne glass in one manicured hand, manila envelope in the other, I could practically hear the concrete groaning. "What's in the envelope?" I asked, though part of me already knew. "Your birthday present." She slid it across our granite kitchen island, the same island we'd picked out together 3 years ago, when we still talked about having kids someday, when she still laughed at my jokes. "Go ahead, open it." My hands were steadier than I expected as I lifted the flap. Inside were legal documents, professionally bound, with our names typed in bold letters across the top. Petition for dissolution of marriage. The words seemed to float off the page. "Divorce papers," I said quietly. "Very good. I knew that engineering degree wasn't wasted on you." Lila took a sip of champagne, leaving a perfect lipstick print on the rim. "I've already signed my part. All you need to do is sign page 12, and we can both move on with our lives." I flipped through the pages, my engineer's brain automatically cataloging the details. Division of assets, spousal support, custody arrangements for pets we didn't have, everything neat and tidy, just like Lila preferred. "Any particular reason you chose my birthday for this?" I asked. It seemed poetic. A new year, a new start. She was enjoying this. I could see it in the way she held her shoulders, the slight upturn of her mouth. "Besides, I figured you'd appreciate the efficiency. No drawn-out fights, no messy emotions. Just sign the papers, and we're done." How thoughtful. I turned to page 12, where a yellow sticky note marked the signature line. "I suppose this has nothing to do with Elliot from your office." Her champagne glass paused halfway to her lips. "What about Elliot?" "Just wondering. You've been working late a lot lately, all those important client meetings." I picked up the pen she'd thoughtfully provided. A Mont Blanc, probably another gift from her mysterious overtime hours. "He seems like a nice guy. Very attentive." "Gavin." Her voice carried a warning I'd heard before. The same tone she used when I left dishes in the sink or forgot to take out the trash. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." "Harder than it needs to be?" I laughed, surprising myself. "Lila, you just served me divorce papers with champagne. I think we're already in uncharted territory. Be a man and sign it." Those 5 words hit me like a slap. Be a man. As if the past 8 years of marriage, of working 60-hour weeks to pay for her lifestyle, of putting up with her friends and their passive-aggressive comments about my modest salary, somehow didn't qualify as being a man. I looked down at the papers again, scanning the legal language with the same attention I gave structural blueprints. That's when I saw it, buried in subsection C of the marital property agreement, a clause I'd insisted on during our prenup negotiations 8 years ago, back when we were young and in love and thought we'd never need lawyers. Lila had forgotten about it. I could tell by the way she was tapping her nails against the counter, impatient for me to sign and get this over with. She'd probably had her lawyer draw up the papers quickly, copying the language from our original prenuptial agreement, without reading the fine print. The clause was simple. If either party filed for divorce due to adultery or abandonment of the marriage, all jointly acquired assets would revert to the non-filing party, including the luxury condo downtown that Lila thought she'd hidden so cleverly in her maiden name. I signed with a flourish. "There," I said, sliding the papers back across the counter. "All done." "Good." She drained her champagne glass and stood up. "I'll be staying at Monica's tonight. You can have the house until we figure out the details." How generous. "Oh, and Gavin?" She paused at the kitchen doorway, looking back at me with something that might have been pity. "Try not to be too bitter about this. We both know it wasn't working." After she left, I poured myself another glass of champagne and pulled out my phone. Mark, my buddy from college, who tended bar at O'Malley's downtown, had been texting me all day. "Heard some interesting gossip today," his message read. "You free for drinks?" I texted back. "Just freed up my entire evening. See you in an hour." Then I opened my laptop and logged into my bank account. The joint account that Lila thought I never checked. The one that showed regular payments to a downtown condo association for the past 6 months. The same condo that, thanks to the clause she'd forgotten about, now legally belonged to me. I raised my glass to the empty kitchen. "Happy birthday to me, Lila?" O'Malley's was the kind of bar where civil engineers and construction workers could drink next to lawyers and accountants without anyone getting too pretentious about it. Mark had been working there since college, and somehow he'd become the unofficial confessor for half the city's professional class. "You look like hell," he said, sliding a whiskey across the bar to me. "Thanks, really what I needed to hear tonight." "Sorry, man, but seriously, what happened? You sounded weird in your text." I told him about the birthday surprise, the champagne, the divorce papers. Mark listened without interrupting, occasionally refilling my glass when it got too low. "So she just dropped it on you? No warning? No discussion?" "Oh, there were warnings. I just chose to ignore them." I took a sip of whiskey, feeling the burn in my throat. The late nights, the new clothes, the way she started pronouncing my name like it left a bad taste in her mouth. "And you think it's this Elliot guy?" "I know it's Elliot. Saw them together at Starbucks last week. Very cozy, very not discussing quarterly reports." Mark wiped down a glass, thinking. "You know, I might have heard something about that." "What kind of something?" "Tessa Morrison was in here last Friday with her book club friends. You know Tessa, right? Works with your wife?" I nodded. Tessa was one of Lila's closest friends, a real estate agent with a mouth like a broken fire hydrant. Well, they'd had a few drinks, and Tessa starts talking about how Lila's finally getting what she deserves with some new guy at work. Real detailed conversation, if you know what I mean. "How detailed?" Mark glanced around the bar, making sure no one was listening. "Let's just say Tessa was very impressed with this guy's stamina and his expense account." The whiskey turned sour in my mouth. Bad enough that my wife was cheating on me. Worse that her friends were gossiping about it in public, rating her boyfriend's performance like he was a restaurant on Yelp. "There's more," Mark continued. "Monica Chen was with them. She mentioned something about Lila moving into a fancy place downtown. Said it was about time. Lila got to live the lifestyle she deserved." Monica. Another one of Lila's inner circle, a financial advisor who'd always made it clear she thought Lila had married beneath her station. Did they mention an address? Harbor Towers, the new building with the glass balconies. I knew the place. I'd actually consulted on the structural engineering for the foundation work 3 years ago. Luxury condos starting at $800,000 with views of the inner harbor. The kind of place where the monthly association fees cost more than most people's rent. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Hope you're enjoying your birthday gift. Some of us are celebrating properly." I showed the message to Mark, whose face darkened. "She sent this tonight?" "Looks like it. I scrolled up and saw several photos attached to the message. Lila and Elliot at what looked like an expensive restaurant, toasting with wine that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. In one photo, Elliot's hand was clearly visible on Lila's thigh. Man, that's cold, even for her. Oh, it gets better. I pulled up the documents I'd photographed before leaving the house. She forgot about a little clause in our prenup. I explained about the adultery provision, the asset reversion, the condo that was about to become my property instead of hers. Mark's expression shifted from sympathy to something approaching admiration. So she just screwed herself? Completely. And the best part? She has no idea yet. What are you going to do? I finished my whiskey and stood up. I'm going to go home, get a good night's sleep, and tomorrow I'm going to call my lawyer. Then I think I'll take a drive downtown and check out my new condo. This is going to get ugly, isn't it? Mark, I said, dropping a 20 on the bar, it's going to be beautiful. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls from Lila and a string of increasingly frantic text messages. Gavin, we need to talk. Call me back right now. This isn't funny anymore. I'm coming over. The last message had been sent 20 minutes ago. I was still reading through them when I heard her key in the front door. Gavin! Her voice echoed through the house. Where are you? Upstairs, I called back, not bothering to get out of bed. She appeared in the bedroom doorway, still wearing the red dress from last night but looking considerably less composed. Her makeup was smeared, her hair was disheveled, and she was clutching a stack of papers in her hand. What did you do? She demanded. I signed the divorce papers, just like you asked. Don't play dumb with me. I got a call from Harbor Towers this morning. They said the condo deed transferred to your name overnight. They want to know if I'm moving out or if you're moving in. I sat up in bed, making a show of stretching and yawning. Oh, that. Yeah, I should probably go take a look at the place, make sure it's up to my standards. This is fraud, Gavin. You can't just steal my property. It's not fraud, Lila. It's contract law. You remember our prenup, right? The one you insisted on? There's a lovely little clause in there about adultery and asset forfeiture. Her face went white. You can't prove adultery. I held up my phone, showing her the photos she'd sent me the night before. Actually, I think I can. Thanks for the evidence, by the way. Very thoughtful of you to document everything. She stared at the photos for a long moment, and I watched the realization dawn on her face. She'd been so eager to hurt me, so confident in her victory, that she'd handed me everything I needed to destroy her. You bastard, she whispered. Now, let's keep this civil. After all, we're going to be divorced soon. No need for name-calling. She turned and stormed out of the room. A few minutes later, I heard the front door slam hard enough to rattle the windows. I rolled over and went back to sleep. For the first time in months, I didn't have any nightmares. The Harbor Towers concierge treated me like royalty. Mr. Henderson, welcome to your new home, he said, handing me a set of keys and an access card. Unit 47B, as you requested. The previous tenant's belongings have been moved to storage, per the court order. I'd spent the morning with my lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Wells, who specialized in complex divorce cases. She'd reviewed the prenup, examined the evidence of Lila's affair, and filed the necessary paperwork with ruthless efficiency. Your wife's attorney is going to fight this, Patricia had warned me. But the contract language is ironclad. As long as we can prove adultery, those assets are yours. The photos Lila had sent me would be enough, but I wanted to be thorough. I'd also hired a private investigator. Nothing dramatic, just a retired cop who specialized in documenting extramarital affairs. He'd already provided me with credit card receipts, hotel records, and several more photos of Lila and Elliot together. The elevator to the 47th floor was glass-walled, offering a spectacular view of the harbor as it climbed. The condo itself was everything I'd expected. Floor-to-ceiling windows, granite countertops, hardwood floors that probably cost more than my annual salary. The kind of place Lila had always dreamed of living. I walked through the rooms, taking inventory. The master bedroom had a king-size bed with Egyptian cotton sheets. The walk-in closet was filled with expensive clothes, most of which I didn't recognize. The bathroom had a jetted tub big enough for 2 people. In the kitchen, I found a bottle of the same Dom Perignon Lila had served me for my birthday. There was a note attached. For celebrating new beginnings. Love, E. I opened the bottle and poured myself a glass, toasting the empty apartment. To new beginnings indeed. My phone rang. Lila. Gavin, please. We need to talk about this reasonably. I'm listening. I made a mistake. I know that now. But you can't just take everything I've worked for. Worked for? I laughed. Lila, you've been living a double life with your boyfriend's money. That's not work. That's fraud. It's not like that. Elliot and I, it's complicated. I'm sure it is, especially now that his wife knows about it. Silence on the other end of the line. That's right, I continued. I sent Sophie a nice little package this morning. Photos, hotel receipts, credit card statements. Amazing what you can find when you actually look. You didn't. I did. I figured she deserved to know what her husband was spending their money on. Very educational reading, I'm sure. Gavin, please. I'll end things with Elliot. We can work this out. Too late for that, don't you think? You made your choice when you served me divorce papers. I'm just making sure the consequences are appropriately distributed. I hung up and poured myself another glass of champagne. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the entire city spread out below me. From up here, everyone looked small and manageable. The next few days passed in a blur of legal meetings and paperwork. Patricia filed motion after motion, each one tightening the noose around Lila's financial neck. The condo was just the beginning. There were also joint investment accounts, a vacation timeshare in Ocean City, and a BMW that Lila had bought with money from our joint savings account. All of it legally mine now, thanks to the clause she'd forgotten about. Elliot, meanwhile, was dealing with his own problems. His wife Sophie had frozen all their accounts and filed for divorce, citing the evidence I'd provided. She'd also called his boss at the investment firm, raising questions about whether Elliot had been using company resources to fund his affair. I learned all this from Mark, who'd heard it from Tessa during her weekly visit to O'Malley's. She's singing like a canary, Mark told me over drinks. Apparently Lila's been calling everyone, trying to get people on her side. But Tessa's not interested anymore. Says Lila made her own bed. What about Monica? Monica's pretending she never knew anything about the affair. Classic Monica, first sign of trouble and she runs for cover. It was interesting, watching Lila's support network crumble in real time. These were women who'd been her closest friends for years, who'd gossiped and schemed together, who'd made me feel like an outsider at every dinner party and social gathering. Now that Lila was in trouble, they were abandoning her faster than rats leaving a sinking ship. My phone buzzed with another text from Lila. I'm staying at a motel on Route 40, please call me. Route 40. I knew the area. Cheap motels, fast food restaurants, the kind of place where people stayed when they couldn't afford anything better. A far cry from Harbor Towers. I deleted the message without responding. The next morning, I decided to throw a housewarming party. The guest list for my housewarming party was carefully curated. I invited everyone from our old social circle, the lawyers, the real estate agents, the financial advisors who'd made up Lila's inner circle, the same people who'd spent years making subtle digs about my modest lifestyle and my practical career choices. This place is incredible, Gavin, said Jennifer Walsh, a corporate lawyer who'd never given me the time of day at previous gatherings. I had no idea you were doing so well. It's amazing what you can accomplish when you plan ahead, I replied, offering her a glass of wine. The key is reading the fine print. Monica Chen arrived fashionably late, looking nervous. She'd been avoiding my calls since the divorce papers were filed, probably hoping the whole situation would blow over without her having to pick sides. "Gavin, this is unexpected," she said, looking around the condo with obvious discomfort. "Life's full of surprises, isn't it? Speaking of which, have you talked to Lila lately?" "Not really. She's been going through a difficult time." "I imagine so. Divorce can be very stressful, especially when it involves financial complications." Monica's face flushed. "Look, I don't want to get involved in whatever's happening between you two." "Too late for that, don't you think? I mean, you were involved when you were helping her hide assets. You were involved when you were celebrating her affair at book club meetings. You were involved when you were gossiping about my marriage at O'Malley's." The conversation around us had gone quiet. Other guests were listening now, sensing drama. I didn't know." "You didn't know that Lila was cheating on me? You didn't know about the condo? You didn't know about the secret credit cards and the hidden bank accounts?" I kept my voice level, conversational. "Because I have receipts, Monica. Literally. Financial records showing your signature on several documents related to Lila's extracurricular activities." She turned pale. "I was just helping a friend." "Of course you were. The question is, what kind of help were you providing? Financial advice? Legal consultation? Or were you just enjoying the show?" Monica mumbled something about needing to leave early and headed for the door. Several other guests followed her, suddenly remembering urgent appointments they'd forgotten about. Tessa Morrison stayed, though. She was nursing a glass of wine and watching the exodus with amusement. "Well, that was entertaining," she said once the room had cleared out. "You're not leaving?" "Why would I? This is the most fun I've had at a party in months." She raised her glass in a mock toast. "Besides, I always thought Lila was getting too big for her britches. About time someone knocked her down a peg." Interesting perspective from her best friend. Best friend, please? Lila only kept me around because I made her feel superior. You know, the divorced real estate agent with the messy love life. Made her feel better about her own choices. Tessa took a long sip of wine. "But between you and me, I always thought you were too good for her." "Why didn't you say anything? Would you have listened? You were completely whipped, Gavin. We all saw it. Lila would snap her fingers and you'd come running. It was embarrassing to watch." The honesty stung, but I had to admit she was right. I had been whipped. I'd spent years trying to make Lila happy, trying to live up to her expectations, trying to prove I was worthy of her love. "So what's the plan now?" Tessa asked. "I assume you're not done with her yet." "What makes you say that?" "Because I know you, Gavin. You're an engineer. You don't just tear something down without having blueprints for what comes next." She was right about that too. I did have plans. Detailed, carefully constructed plans that would ensure Lila understood exactly what she'd lost and exactly what it had cost her. "Let's just say the renovation isn't complete yet," I told her. The next morning, I got a call from Patricia Wells. "We have a problem," she said. "Lila's attorney is claiming the prenup was signed under duress. They're asking for a full financial audit and challenging the adultery clause. Can they do that? They can try, but it's going to be expensive for them, and they don't have a strong case. The prenup was negotiated by independent attorneys, both parties had legal representation, and there's no evidence of coercion. What about the adultery evidence? Rock solid. The photos, the financial records, the witness statements. It's more than enough to prove infidelity, but they might try to argue that the asset forfeiture clause is punitive rather than compensatory." Meaning? Meaning they'll claim it's designed to punish rather than protect, which could make it unenforceable. It's a long shot, but stranger things have happened. I thanked Patricia and hung up, then immediately called the private investigator. "I need more," I told him. "Everything you can find on both of them. Financial records, employment history, social media, phone records, the works." "That's going to be expensive." "I don't care what it costs." By the end of the week, I had a file 2 inches thick on Lila and Elliot's affair. Bank statements showing cash withdrawals that coincided with hotel stays. credit card receipts from expensive restaurants and jewelry stores, text messages recovered from Elliot's company phone, even security footage from the Harbor Tower's garage showing them entering and leaving together. But the most interesting discovery was what the investigator found in Elliot's employment records. "Your wife's boyfriend has been embezzling from his company," the investigator told me. "Small amounts, spread out over several months, but it adds up to about $50,000. He's been using it to fund the affair." "Can you prove it?" "Already did. I've got copies of the altered expense reports, the fake client accounts, the whole thing. His company just hasn't figured it out yet." I smiled. "I think it's time they did." The anonymous tip I sent to Elliot's company was a masterpiece of documentation: financial records, altered expense reports, fake client accounts, everything laid out in chronological order with supporting evidence. I even included a helpful summary explaining how the embezzled money had been used to fund an extramarital affair. The response was swift and decisive. Elliot was fired within 24 hours, escorted from the building by security while his former colleagues watched from their office windows. The company also filed a police report, which meant criminal charges were likely to follow. I learned all this from Mark, who'd heard it from a bartender at the downtown hotel where Elliot's company held their monthly happy hours. "Word is they're going after him for everything," Mark told me over drinks. "Criminal charges, civil suit, the whole 9 yards. His wife's divorce attorney is having a field day." "What about Lila?" "That's where it gets interesting. Apparently she tried to contact Elliot after he got fired, but his lawyer told him to cut all communication with her. She's been calling his office, showing up at his apartment building, even tried to approach his wife at the grocery store." Desperate times. It gets better. Tessa told me that Lila's been trying to borrow money from everyone she knows. The motel kicked her out for non-payment, and her credit cards are maxed out. I felt a momentary pang of something that might have been sympathy. Then I remembered the champagne cork hitting my forehead, the smug smile, the photos she'd sent me of her celebration dinner. "She made her choices," I said. "Yeah, well, apparently she wants to make some new ones. Tessa says Lila's been asking about you. Wants to know if you'd be willing to meet with her." "What did you tell Tessa?" "I told her you were busy enjoying your new lifestyle." That was an understatement. The condo was everything I'd never known I wanted. The view, the space, the feeling of being above it all, literally and figuratively. I'd been working from home more often, taking video calls with clients while standing at the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. My boss had noticed the change in my attitude. "You seem different lately, Henderson. More confident. I like it. Just feeling good about life, Mr. Wallace." "Well, whatever you're doing, keep it up. The Morrison project is ahead of schedule and under budget. The client is thrilled." The Morrison project. Tessa's latest real estate development, a luxury shopping complex that I'd been hired to design. The irony wasn't lost on me. Lila's former best friend was now one of my biggest professional advocates. "Gavin's been amazing to work with," Tessa had told the client during our last meeting. "Professional, creative, and incredibly thorough. I can't recommend him highly enough." It was funny how quickly people's opinions could change when your circumstances improved. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Please, I just need 5 minutes. I'm in the lobby." I looked down from my 47th floor window and could see a small figure standing near the building entrance. Even from this height, I recognized Lila's posture, shoulders hunched, head down, the body language of defeat. I called building security. "There's someone in the lobby who shouldn't be there," I told them. "Could you please have them removed?" "Of course, Mr. Henderson. We'll take care of it right away." I watched from my window as 2 security guards approached Lila. There was a brief conversation, some gesturing toward the elevators. Then they escorted her outside. She stood on the sidewalk for a few minutes, looking up at the building, before finally walking away. My phone rang immediately. "You bastard!" Lila's voice was raw, desperate. You can't even give me 5 minutes? I gave you 8 years, Lila. I think that's enough. I made a mistake. I know that. But this is cruel, Gavin. This isn't like you. Maybe you never really knew me. Please, I'm living in my car. I lost my job because of the scandal. I can't even afford food. You should have thought about that before you decided to celebrate your divorce with champagne and photos. That was stupid. I was angry and stupid, and I wanted to hurt you, but I never meant for it to go this far. How far did you mean for it to go, exactly? You filed for divorce, Lila. You tried to take half of everything I'd worked for. You humiliated me in front of our friends. You made me feel like I was worthless. My voice was rising, and I forced myself to calm down. The only difference between your plan and mine is that mine actually worked. So what now? You just destroy my life and walk away? I'm not destroying your life, Lila. I'm just not subsidizing it anymore. There's a difference. I have nothing left. You have exactly what you brought to this marriage. Your education, your skills, your ability to work. The same things I had when we met. That's not fair. Fair? I laughed. You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been having an honest conversation about our problems instead of sneaking around behind my back. Fair would have been asking for a divorce instead of trying to steal everything I'd worked for. Fair would have been treating me with basic human respect instead of serving me papers on my birthday like I was some kind of pest you needed to exterminate. She was crying now, ugly sobs that I could hear through the phone. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry, Gavin. I know I hurt you, but please. I can't live like this. You're not living like anything, Lila. You're just experiencing the consequences of your choices. Welcome to adulthood. I hung up and blocked her number. The next morning, I got a call from Patricia Wells. It's over, she said. Lila's attorney withdrew the challenge to the prenup. All assets transfer to you, as specified in the original agreement. What changed their minds? Probably the criminal investigation into her boyfriend's embezzlement. Having your affair partner arrested for stealing money to fund your relationship doesn't exactly strengthen your position in divorce court. So it's final? It's final. Congratulations, Gavin. You're officially divorced and significantly wealthier. I celebrated that night at O'Malley's with Mark and a few other friends. Word had spread about my victory, and I found myself surrounded by people who wanted to buy me drinks and hear the story. To Gavin, Mark said, raising his glass, who proved that nice guys don't always finish last. Sometimes they just take a little longer to get started, I replied. The crowd laughed and drank, and for the first time in months, I felt genuinely happy. Not vindicated or satisfied or relieved, actually happy. Later that night, as I stood on my balcony looking out over the harbor, my phone buzzed with one final message from Lila's old number. Someone else must have been using it now, because the message was clearly meant for someone else. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Love you. I smiled and deleted it without responding. Some stories end with forgiveness and reconciliation. Some end with dramatic confrontations and grand gestures. This one ended with me standing in my luxury condo, financially secure and legally vindicated, watching the city lights reflect off the harbor water while my ex-wife learned to live with the consequences of her choices. It wasn't the ending Lila had planned when she popped that champagne cork and handed me those divorce papers, but it was the ending she'd earned.